Today, we celebrate Earth Day, and I will use the words of Lynn Harrison to express our commitment, love, and joy for our Mother Earth. Committed to respond to the call of a wounded world, we join together this day with loving hearts, hands, and minds, embracing the interconnected web of water, air, and earth. We light a fire of sustaining hope, ever bright with love and justice. May we bring forth this day new wisdom, strength, and courage to create a new world, not of wealth, but well-being. A new world of peace and abundance for all. As we give thanks for this earth, our shared and singular home, may we dedicate ourselves to its ongoing care, rising to the calls deep within us and all around us. May we respond today and always with courage and love.
Our call to worship today is by William Butler Yeats. You may know this poem. I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of morning to where the cricket sings, there midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, while I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core.
Is there a picture of a gold medallion tree? Yes. The botanical name is Cassia leptophila. I think I said that right. And I'll be talking about that tree in a minute. But first I want to share a couple of recollections. I'm a journaler, and so I've got a couple of collections that I've put together over the years. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. But this first one, you might want to imagine that you are experiencing it as I read it to you. Alone on a hillside, I look at a patch of earth before me and follow the impulse to join with it. I step into the flat open area between the rocks and lie on my belly, spread eagle on the ground. An unself-conscious surrender begins within me. The dry fragrance of the decaying leaves, the warmth of the midsummer sun, and the welcoming earth take me in. The faint rustle of tiny creatures doing their work in close proximity is a soothing enfoldment. My separateness ceases. There is no place where I leave off and the earth begins. In this magical moment, my body disappears into the surrounding landscape. I am this ground. There is no other. I feel myself to be the rich compost returning to mineral essence, from dust to dust. It feels completely natural, comfortable, effortless. The following recollection is something I'm sure that you've all experienced in one way or another. Granddad's backyard feels cool after the wavering summer heat of day. I spread my 12-year-old self out on my back in the thick, damp grass and fall forward into the night sky. Where did it come from? Where is it now? What is beyond its edges? What was before it was? I frighten myself with questions so immense. Now you might guess I'm not doing much laying down on the ground these days, but I live with this mountain. I have a clear view of the mountain range that we live next to from where I live, and I watch the play of light and shadow as it reveals different contours. And like yesterday, there were little bits of mist revealing other ridges. It's constantly changing and constantly present for me, except when it's completely shrouded by clouds. And now to the tree. When the tree is in bloom like it is now, usually that happens in late summer. It is so beautiful. I just dearly love this tree. But it doesn't always look like that. In fact, right now, it's covered with these. And there are hundreds of these dangling from the branches. And the wind brought a few dozen of them down into my patio the other day. They're very hard to break. In fact, I spent some time trying to break one so that I could show you the insides of it. But anyway, there are a couple of them here if you want to take one home and experiment with it. But one day, this was a few years ago, I have to walk under that tree to get in and out of my patio. And one of these conked me on the head and it said, "I don't do what I do for you. You may appreciate my beauty and maybe sometimes you judge me not to be very friendly, but I do what I do just because I do it. And it's my natural rhythms and it's my natural flow." Now this winter it didn't even lose any leaves. Usually it does, but it's ever changing. I can't predict what it's going to do. And I notice myself when I'm judging this tree to either be good or bad or pleasing or not, that I do that same thing to myself, and it's teaching me to begin to honor my own rhythms and to be more accepting of myself. So that is the gold medallion tree. And I invite each of you to think about the ways that you connect with nature and love the world and the earth and share that with someone over the next day or so. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm going to rename this "The Day the Beaches Died, a Memory." It was not a difficult choice. I was a junior in high school and applying to colleges. Having grown up in Los Angeles, I had seen UCLA, but I wanted something a little farther from home, so I enlisted a friend to drive me to Santa Barbara to look at UCSB. The drive up to Santa Barbara was lovely. Once we hit the coast at Ventura, I was dazzled by the series of pristine beaches and the sparkling blue Pacific Ocean. When we reached Santa Barbara, nestled between the ocean and the mountains, I could not believe my eyes. Entering UCSB, then a sparsely built campus with green lawns, eucalyptus, I was hooked. The campus was surrounded by beaches even more beautiful than those I had grown up around: Venice, Santa Monica, Seal Beach, Huntington Beach. I applied only to UCSB and thankfully got in. A year later, in the fall of 1967, I moved into an on-campus dorm and began daily walks around the lagoon and to Campus Point with its beautiful tide pools and perfect surfing waves. The following summer, 1968, my first Isla Vista apartment was on El Nido, 2 blocks from the cliffs over the beach. I cleaned student apartments for a living, but on the weekends I spent on the beaches in the ocean within bicycling distance of my apartment. In the fall, I moved to an apartment on Sabado Tardi, 3 blocks from the ocean. I launched into my second year of college and life was good. Then one day, everything changed. I was cleaning my apartment, a highly unusual event for me at that time, when some friends came running up the stairs into my living room in hysterics, shouting something about the beach being covered in thick black tar, oil and tar coming in with each wave. This was crazy talk, had to be an exaggeration. As they left, I looked down at my once cream-colored carpet and saw black footprints and clumps of tar. Now I had to see for myself what was going on. My neighbors and I went down to the cliffs where we saw something unbelievable. Previously perfect white sand beaches covered in thick black tar, and oil slick covering the ocean as far as the eye could see. Because I had to go to work, that was all I saw that day in January of 1969. The next few days were a blur, but eventually we knew what had happened. An oil well, owned by Union Oil, had a blowout on drilling platform A, which caused a massive leak of crude oil. Within days, 75 square miles of ocean from the shores of Santa Barbara to Ventura and to the Channel Islands were covered with thick oil slick. 2 million gallons of crude oil spilled in 10 days. The entire harbor and all its boats were covered in inches thick black crude oil. Waves broke in silence, muted by the heavy coating of oil, the black tide. But this was by far not the worst consequence. An estimated 3,700 birds were suffocated by the tar. In addition, countless dolphins, elephant seals, and sea lions washed up on the shores, dead and covered in oil. Other ocean organisms had up to 90% mortality rate. Despite the spill being widely reported by the media, Union Oil at first claimed no oil had leaked. Union Oil President Fred Hartley infamously said, and I quote, "I don't like to call it a disaster because there was no loss of human life. I am amazed at the publicity for the loss of a few birds." Cleanup efforts began immediately as thousands of shocked residents showed up to individually wipe, clean thousands of birds and other sea animals. A treatment center was set up at the zoo, and unfortunately, most of the birds did not survive, but it was a beautiful thing to see people wiping those birds down. Oil-soaked beaches were covered in straw and raked up, chemicals were sprayed, many methods were tried to remove the oil, but the blowout had caused a rupture along the ocean floor that leaked oil faster than any cleanup efforts could collect. At the time, it was the largest oil spill in US waters. But thanks to the efforts of local and national citizens, in the years following, more environmental legislation was passed than in any period in US history, including the Clean Water Act, the Endangered Species Act, and the creation of the Environmental Protection Agency. Locally, Get Oil Out, or GOO, the Environmental Defense Center, and the Community Environmental Council were formed and are still active today. Statewide, the California Coastal Commission was created to oversee all activities affecting our coastline, which it has done ever since. 1 year after the spill, in April of 1970, the first Earth Day was celebrated by 20 million Americans, which was at that time 10% of the US population. the largest secular day of protest in the world. Earth Day continues to be celebrated annually, 56 years later, all over the world.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Wanda Johnson. Good morning. When I was asked to participate in this Earth Day celebration, I hesitated because I really couldn't think of a special moment that inspired my love of our Earth. There was no special moment because I don't remember ever not loving this Earth. I had to really ponder about what reminds me of my connection to the Earth, but as Henry David Thoreau said, we can never have enough of nature. Is nature only around us or in us? Or perhaps, more importantly, the words of Chief Seattle, the Earth does not belong to us, we belong to the Earth. I grew up on small farms in northwest Missouri, and the rolling hills were my playground. I spent my childhood wandering the woods and creeks, helping my mom plant a huge garden and harvesting the tasty rewards. Peas needed to be picked, shelled, maybe nibbled on, and cooked with freshly dug potatoes. Tomatoes needed to be picked, cooked, and canned for the winter. Cows, pigs, and chickens needed attention, and my horse needed me to ride bareback over the hills and spend some time close to catfish and frog-filled ponds. I vividly remember the mysterious springtime ritual of morel mushroom hunts while discovering them hidden beneath mayapple bushes. Now that I think about it, many of my memories revolved around food, grown from the rich soil and prepared from my mother's caring hands. I didn't really know anything about farming or about being a farmer, how environmental systems work, how or why to rotate crops, how to cultivate insecticide-free and weed killer-free crops, or how the concepts of animal husbandry produce the best cattle and hogs. Now, I believe my father was probably among some of the first environmentalists. His way of farming probably set some of the foundations for our Earth Day concepts that we honor today as organic farming. Although I did not understand all the workings of the earth, I did know how to eliminate weeds from 40 acres of soybeans by wearing sturdy shoes and wielding a sharp hoe along the long rows of crops. That chore created an intimate connection between me and Mother Earth. After all, Mahatma Gandhi said, to forget how to dig the earth and to tend the soil is to forget ourselves. Most of my youth was spent on a large farm about 5 miles outside of a very small town. Our location meant that we always had dark sky nights, except for the glow of the moonlight, the flashing and darting bodies of lightning bugs, and the twinkling starlight of that's filled the night sky. My father always directed my gaze into my surroundings, especially the ever-changing sky and its contents, both day and night. Some of my favorite memories are of the brilliant and subtle colors from sunup to sundown, the clouds, the birds, the bees, the butterflies, the floating pollen and leaves. And I have always loved the fragrances, the smells of the farm, especially the smell of new-mown grass or hay. Even the barnyard smells, you know what those are, produce some interesting thoughts and memories. But my favorite memory, though, is of petrichor, the smell that permeates the air after rain on dry earth. That particular word is difficult for me to remember, but when I travel anywhere, I always seek out nature and the earth, not shopping malls and the cities. I do tolerate and appreciate the people that interact with Mother Earth, but the actual soil is my love language. Botanic gardens, goat farms, sheep farms, hikes to waterfalls, beachside fairy penguins, wild caribou, bears, and red foxes. All are beautiful, fascinating, and spectacular parts of the earth. All are unique, yet all relate to the earth in their own way, and I now realize that my special connection to the earth is petrichor, no matter where I am. My memories of petrichor are my special moments in nature. That aroma, that petrichor that always brings me back to my connection to the earth. Or as Margaret Atwood said, in the spring, at the end of the day, you should smell like dirt. And I agree with her.